In Clash Royale, breaking a tower opens up this area referred to by many as the pocket. Being able to play cards in the pocket is undeniably an advantage for you. I mean, it's an extra option that offers no downsides, so even if it doesn't help your deck, you can just act like it isn't there and play stuff on the bridge. The main issue I notice is most inexperienced players tend to drop every single card there without thinking, when in reality, a good player should be alternating between dropping cards on the bridge like normally would and dropping cards in the pocket when it makes the most sense based on the presented circumstances. So here is the core differences between the pocket versus the bridge. The main difference between the two is the distance between the spawn point and the enemy tower. Let's use a bunch of bananas to measure the distance here. Measuring from the pocket, as you can see, clearly takes less bananas, therefore it's closer. Honestly, I don't know why I used the bananas. Clearly playing two Royal Giants is an easier way to showcase the differences. Being able to start attacking towers before your opponent can literally be game changing, especially in sudden death games. You are almost always guaranteed to win a tower race if you use the pocket. This gets even better with ranged cards like Royal Giant, as he almost automatically locks on tower without needing to move at all. Some troops are actually impossible to stop without taking any damage if you count on your reaction time, and predictions on pocket snipes are often very risky. I have lost countless games where I was demolishing my opponent and spamming everything up until he suddenly drops a cannon card in the pocket and steals the victory. But with great rewards comes great risk. Playing cards in the pocket can be very bad because they will be under attack while their deploy timer is still active. They usually would also be under attack from both the Princess Tower and the King Tower, making some cards not even connect on tower if left ignored, when they clearly would 100% get on tower when played on the bridge instead of the pocket. It's also terrible for ranged cards, as the opponent will be able to play his cards directly on them instead of having to wait for them to cross the bridge. Some decks can turn this disadvantage into an advantage, since placing a giant in the middle when you have troops counter pushing from both sides, it will tank for all the troops and threaten both towers at the same time. It's even helpful for some cycle decks to sneakingly drop a tank in an unpredictable time, as it makes some win conditions more deadly. Here, not only are they gonna have to commit more into dealing with the skeleton barrel, but they will also have to worry about the Mega Knight that I dropped as well. This trick is, I wouldn't say common, but I would say it's a must use in graveyard decks if the game goes to two towers, especially non-giant variants, because it's one of those decks that borderline loses the entire game if it loses a tower. Speaking of decks that die when losing a tower,
cycle decks are usually the biggest victim, especially Xbow.
Hey dude, wrong channel I believe.
Nah man, you placed an Xbow. This video's mine now.
Alright, fine, I'll let you have this one. I'll be back in a bit.
See, with the pocket open, cycle decks are screwed, because opponents can simply deploy cards directly on top of our buildings to ruin our defenses, which will leave us no choice but to use some weird building placements that are significantly less effective. But it's not all doom and gloom for cycle decks, because the pocket can be very helpful for them. Besides being able to abuse things like Evo Archer's Knight in the pocket to pull off some clutch wins unexpectedly, sometimes a simple skeleton for one elixir can ruin an entire beatdown push by making their Evo P.E.K.K.A go behind their Goblin Giant. Honestly, there are plenty of other examples of things you can do when they pair a building targeting troop with a regular one. Just focus on being creative with it, make sure you know the interactions very well, and practice the ability to make quick, concise decisions. And it does go both ways, like you can pull a giant back using a building placement on their side, which would leave their graveyard exposed to shots from your tower.
That's enough. I'll take it from here.
I mean, I was cooking, man, but alright, back to you, Abdod.
SK's building point reminds me, attacking with your win condition from the pocket can be a bad idea if the enemy has a building. Your tank starting in the middle makes it easier to kite more far away, that even if it breaks their building, it would be too far from the tower, it will end up going to the King Tower after that. There is an exception to this if you have something like a Prince running on the opposite side, as it prevents them from playing a building safely. The only card that is fully immune to this is the Royal Giant, because he doesn't walk towards building, so they can't really kite him towards their King Tower. With Tornado, things get even worse, because even a Royal Giant is not safe in the pocket and can be distracted into their King Tower, which is why, against cycle decks, your main win condition is often played on the bridge despite the longer walking distance. There are a few other examples of matchup specific interactions, like how an Electro Giant pushing from the bridge against a Lava Hound deck is often a better play because it makes supporting the Lava Hound impossible, and against recruits it tends to be a terrible idea to use the pocket because it allows them to defend the push with all 6 recruits at the same time, so it becomes harder to break through. The good thing about that is that with a bridge push, you can build up an investment unit like a Sparky, which will entirely clog up the lane. It will also allow you to utilize things such as pushing your Electro Giant with a Golden Knight, and do some anti-kiting positions that would 100% not work if you play your cards in the pocket. Even if your push is coming from the bridge, some non-win condition troops are worth using as a support from the pocket. I have caught so many Evo Ice Spirits with a pocket bomber before, it's actually hilarious. Sure, they might play it far from the middle to stop it, but most players default into kiting things away from their tower, not closer to it. This works really great against splash cards, as any random tank placed in the pocket will distract them from your swarm cards, making sure they get close to no value. And there are some cards like Fisherman that have to be played in positions where it will always get distracted by pocket deployments. I mean, no one is gonna play a Fisherman here, like what's the point of that? Some of the cards that offer unique abilities like Rune Giant can be played in the pocket to give your push an immediate buff. Healer and Lumberjack could also maybe do the same thing, but they are a little bit harder to pull off. What I find interesting is that the decision isn't only based on your opponent's deck. Some cards behave differently, that sometimes they don't even function properly at all, and sometimes it becomes less effective, like how some of these Skeleton King's ability is on the King Tower. So I do suggest that you try to understand what each card is capable of doing on both sides to be able to pick where to drop it. A lot of piercing projectiles can turn into free tower damage if you snipe things properly from the pocket. I mean, they can still do that from the bridge, but the distance they need to walk makes reacting to them a bit more easy. Clone is, I think, the only spell that changes based on this decision, because if you play a push from the bridge, it will push stuff towards your enemy tower, but if you drop your stuff in the pocket, it will push them towards the King Tower, which might be less effective in some cases. Cards with extremely long range should be played on the bridge, as it makes them more likely to connect on the enemy tower, because when they are played closer towards the middle, i.e. in the pocket, they might get distracted by troops from both sides. We also have the TikTok clipper kind of plays that are honestly just straight up weird. If you pull off one of these goofy plays in a real match, make sure to record it and tag the Avengers in a tweet. And don't forget the brain rot edits. One of the things you need to keep in mind is how swarm cards end up splitting in the pocket. Many of them have some unique split formations that makes taking them all out impossible with most spells, and this does change based on which of the 4 pocket tiles you end up actually using. As you can see, the Royal Hogs here end up with a 3-1 split, but if I play them on one of the 2 lower tiles, they will end up going all to the Princess Tower in a 4-0 formation. This lower tile is slightly closer than playing cards on the bridge, but nearly every card will get in range of the King Tower, so unless you go all in on the deeper pocket tiles, it's usually not worth it, as you can see from the damage between the 2 Royal Giants here. And also some troops like Mini P.E.K.K.A. have some goofy sight range that they would go towards the King Tower when played in the lower tiles. A quick note, when both towers are broken, the pocket is still considered closer when it comes to ranged troops, as their AI would walk directly towards the King Tower. However, for melee troops, things are different, because the dumbasses would walk towards the bridge and then to the King Tower, so naturally placing them on the bridge would save you some time. SK, I'd like to give you the last words for being the guest in this video.
I just want to say a big thank you to Abdod for letting me hop on as a feature. If you guys didn't know, I'm SK555, a top player and content creator here on YouTube. If you enjoyed my part, I'd really appreciate if you subscribed to my channel. Link in the description below. So use code Abdod in the shop, and I'll see you in the next one, my dudes.